I'm not a politician, I'm a cybersecurity engineer. This video is not an endorsement of any candidate, political party, or ideology. Instead, I thought it would be beneficial to review some fact-based information about the cybersecurity industry and what to possibly expect with a new presidency in 2025. We'll look at what we've seen during previous administrations and what we might expect for the future of the cybersecurity industry, its regulations, and careers in 2025 and beyond, assuming a Trump presidency for the next 4 years. I'm hoping that whether or not you're in favor of the candidate, that you can watch this video with an objective perspective. That being said, and all disclaimers out of the way, let's get into the video. If you're new here, I'm Day, a cybersecurity engineer at Amazon. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for about 5 years now, and my experience spans various domains, including detection engineering, cloud security, incident response, and threat hunting. If you're looking to stay up to date on the cybersecurity industry and everything technical and career-oriented, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Also, check out the links below for resources, including our Discord community and newsletter. Now, into the video. First off, let's talk about national security and cyber defense. Under Trump's previous term, national security was a key priority. For example, in 2018, his administration launched the National Cyber Strategy, which emphasized defending the US from state-sponsored cyber threats. According to a report from the US Department of Defense, Trump's administration increased cyber operations to counter threats from nations like China, Russia, and Iran. If you want to learn more about this, a link to the 10-page cyber strategy PDF will be linked in the description. Personally, over the last few years across my various cybersecurity roles doing detection response and various investigations, I've definitely noticed an uptick in foreign threat activity, especially around critical infrastructure and large tech platforms. Also, with the rise of AI-powered tools, we've seen an increase in sophisticated phishing and spear phishing attempts targeting high-stakes industries like finance, healthcare, and even governments. In fact, OpenAI's recent threat report highlights this as a major tactic adversaries are employing with AI. I might have a video about that coming soon, and if it's out, you will find it linked in the description or somewhere on the screen, along with the OpenAI threat report. Either way, the surge and continuous proliferation of these adversaries and the critical infrastructure that they're targeting really underscores the need for continuous monitoring, advanced defenses, and possibly counterattacks. So, with Trump returning to office, I could easily see the government doubling down on these types of cyber defense investments to bolster national security against foreign threats. Next, let's take a look at regulatory approaches to cybersecurity. Now, when it comes to regulations, Trump's administration previously was known for a lighter regulatory touch, generally preferring not to impose heavy mandates on businesses. Instead, they typically pushed for voluntary compliance, as seen with initiatives in sectors like finance and energy, where companies were encouraged but not required to adopt certain standards. This approach was outlined in the National Cyber Strategy document, which emphasized voluntary adoption of cybersecurity best practices across various industries. The strategy aimed to foster innovation while still maintaining a level of security awareness. However, various critics argue that this voluntary approach might leave gaps in the overall cybersecurity posture of the nation, especially for smaller businesses or less regulated sectors. I personally believe that there should be more incentives for better cybersecurity practices. Even though smaller businesses or less regulated sectors might not directly work with the government, they still play a crucial role in people's lives and are just as critical to the country's economic infrastructure as larger entities. And personally, I ultimately think that there's a need for a balanced approach that encourages both robust cybersecurity practices across all sectors, regardless of size or regulatory status. Ultimately, there's a possibility that a Trump administration might consider introducing targeted incentives or tax breaks for small businesses that invest in certain cybersecurity measures that might strengthen the overall digital infrastructure without imposing heavy-handed regulations. But all of that is up for speculation. If you want to learn more about the National Cyber Strategy from 2018, the 40-page PDF will be linked in the description below. Essentially, the approach in this cyber strategy is a little bit polarizing because some might argue that flexibility might foster innovation. Ultimately, though, the approach presented in this cyber strategy is a bit polarizing. Although flexibility might foster innovation, it could still leave smaller businesses more vulnerable, as they often lack the resources to voluntarily adopt best practices. In essence, if Trump takes office again, we might see the government leaning towards providing guidelines rather than imposing strict rules, especially for sectors outside critical infrastructure. Now, let's shift gears into workforce development within the cybersecurity industry. Trump's previous administration was known for supporting STEM initiatives, including a 2017 executive order on apprenticeship programs aimed at developing skills for high demand fields, which obviously includes cybersecurity. Now, while this wasn't cybersecurity specific, the aim was to fill high demand jobs across STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. This executive order aims to expand apprenticeship programs in America with a focus on industries facing skill gaps, and for cybersecurity, this could mean more hands-on training opportunities and pathways into the field. The executive order also emphasized the importance of industry-recognized apprenticeships, which could potentially lead to more standardized cybersecurity training programs across the country. I personally believe that with something like this, we'll likely see an increase in cybersecurity apprenticeship programs, more funding for workforce development, and potential collaborations involving community colleges and trade schools. We could also see cybersecurity training companies and even cybersecurity product and solution providers start to integrate their courses and certifications into these apprenticeship programs. These various companies might forge partnerships with community colleges or trade schools, becoming official training partners and employers for cybersecurity apprenticeships. This approach would benefit both parties as the students will gain from the apprenticeship programs while training companies increase their impact and recognition. Moreover, it opens the cybersecurity talent pipeline to individuals with less conventional backgrounds, leading to more talent and diversity in the industry, which is ultimately better for everyone. Personally, I've previously worked part-time at a local community college where I helped to tutor and mentor a few cybersecurity students and entry-level cybersecurity professionals. And some of them actually were able to get their start through government-sponsored STEM programs. They've told me how these initiatives were essential in getting their foot in the door. So ultimately, with Trump coming back, we might see further support for the cybersecurity talent pipeline, which, let's be real, is something the industry desperately needs. Also, the link to that executive order will be in the description below. Next is international cyber policies and tensions. International relations could also see a huge shift. You see, Trump's previous foreign policy approach was very direct, often simply putting America first. This stance sometimes strained relationships with allies, which could impact global cybersecurity collaborations, especially with intelligence sharing partnerships. For instance, the US withdrawal from international agreements like the Iran nuclear deal in 2018 affected cyber diplomacy with allied nations. On the flip side, though, Trump's administration also demonstrated a willingness to take decisive action against cyber threats. For example, in 2018, the US Cyber Command was elevated to a unified combatant command, giving it more autonomy and resources to conduct cyber operations. This very move signaled a more aggressive stance in the cyberspace, potentially deterring some state-sponsored attacks, but also risking escalations in cyber conflicts. And this approach ties closely to the first point I made about prioritizing national security, though some may view this implementation as more aggressive. From personal experience, I know that intelligence sharing across communities and across industries are a huge asset to cybersecurity, so I can only imagine how much of an asset it would be with multiple countries sharing intelligence. I believe I've worked long enough in the cybersecurity industry to realize that we rely a lot on the data shared with both international and local partners to anticipate emerging threats. So if Trump's policies affect these relationships again, it could limit the flow of threat intelligence, potentially making it harder to catch threats early. Details about the Cybercom elevation to combatant command will be linked in the description below. Another area to watch out for is privacy and encryption. During Trump's last term, there were several discussions around law enforcement's access to encrypted communications, which sparked various debates on the balance between privacy and security. If you're familiar with it, it was the 2020 push for the Earn It Act, which raised concerns about potential backdoors into encrypted platforms, though it didn't pass. Primarily, this legislation was aimed to combat online child exploitation, but it faced a lot of criticism for potentially weakening encryption standards. The debate highlighted the ongoing tension between law enforcement's need for access and the importance of strong encryption for cybersecurity and privacy protection. So, as we look towards a Trump presidency in 2025, similar legislative proposals could resurface, reigniting discussions on the delicate balance between national security and individual privacy rights. I personally remember when this topic came up, and the cybersecurity industry online had several heated conversations about it. On one side, for the most part, you had people arguing for the importance of user privacy, and on the other side, there were those who were focused on national security needs and protecting children. As a cybersecurity professional, I've seen firsthand how these debates can impact our industry, and I think the push for backdoors or weakened encryption could potentially undermine the very security measures we're working hard to implement every single day. But it's important to highlight that it's a complex issue that requires careful consideration of both national security needs and the fundamental right to privacy. If Trump ends up pushing for similar legislation, it could reignite this debate, and it's definitely something we'll want to keep an eye on, especially if you value privacy. If you want to learn more about an article that the Internet Society wrote regarding the Earn It Act and how it threatens security, confidentiality, and safety online, it will be linked in the description below. Also, on a side note, if you'd like me to do deep dives into these kinds of topics, let me know in the comments below. I think there's a lot to uncover in each of these topics, obviously without getting too political. Next, election security and misinformation. Election security and misinformation could be huge topics under another Trump presidency. In 2020, Trump's administration was heavily focused on election security, but there were also significant concerns about misinformation and social media's role in this. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, was tasked with protecting the 2020 election, and although they declared it the most secure election in American history, there was plenty of controversy afterward. This controversy led to heightened scrutiny of election security measures and sparked debates about the role of technology in safeguarding democratic processes. As a result, I think this puts cybersecurity and our profession in the forefront of the efforts to protect election integrity, and also having us face challenges from both technical threats and the spread of misinformation. Those are two wildly different things. Ultimately, I think this highlights the critical need for adequate cybersecurity measures in the election systems and the importance of public trust in the voting process to protect democracy. Beyond all these though, I just wanted to give a shout out to all these cybersecurity professionals who work behind the scenes on election security and making sure that everyone's votes count. Thank you so much for your service, even though no one really knows much about you. Looking ahead to 2025, with Trump's presidency, based on his previous term, we might expect a continued emphasis on election security, but with a different approach to addressing misinformation. So we might see Trump's administration push for stricter measures to verify voter information and secure voting systems, potentially leading to increased funding for election cybersecurity initiatives. However, this could also reignite debates about voter accessibility and the balance between security and ease of voting. Regarding misinformation, Trump's stance on social media regulation might influence how platforms handle content moderation and fact-checking. I think this could have far-reaching implications for how cybersecurity professionals approach the challenge of not just protecting systems, but also the integrity of the information itself. If you want to learn more about CISA's joint statement from the Elections Infrastructure Government Coordinating Council and the Election Infrastructure Sector Coordinating Executive Committees on the 2020 election, a link to that will be in the description below. And that was quite a mouthful. Alright, finally, Trump's previous policies leaned heavily on the private sector to drive innovation. He frequently advocated for public-private partnerships where the government collaborates with companies for cybersecurity advancements. And I think this could mean more collaboration, but also more reliance on the private sector for various innovative means of approaching cybersecurity, whether it's for threat intelligence, incident response, detection engineering, cloud security, whatever the case may be. So, to sum it all up, a Trump presidency could mean heightened focus on national security, possible fewer regulations, a push for more public-private partnerships, and an impact on international cybersecurity relations. I think it's always going to be fascinating to see how politics and cybersecurity intersect, especially when it affects our daily lives, as well as how it evolves over the years. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more cybersecurity content. Let me know in the comments, what do you think a Trump presidency would mean specifically for the cybersecurity industry? Let's discuss it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm very sure you will like this video that YouTube is recommending to you over here.